Ladies and gentlemen, hypocrisy. It is at the core of fairness, and fairness then becomes the core of relationships as perceived in equity. Now, when I was a student studying ethics, I was taught this in a different note, that morality is the root of ethics, ethics is the root of law, and law is the root of civilization. And the discussion of what is moral or immoral is often best elucidated by the finest minds in the world who study and devote their lives to these issues through thought experiments. The trolley problem is one such thought experiment. So let's perform a thought experiment. Let us assume for a second that one of the grandest mosques, or the grandest churches, or the grandest synagogue in New York was defaced by vandals. What would happen? Would nobody care? Nobody would notice? Not even a blip in the radar? Think about a second. Been a mosque in New York have been defaced by vandals. There was a synagogue defaced by vandals, or a church. It would be a very unhappy thing to have happened, and the alacrity of the response would be equally unhappy. So now it happens that in Sacramento, one of the finest temples is vandalized, and is vandalized. We know what kind of lumpen elements want to do this. We know why they want to do it. They want to do it because they want people in the Hindu community to get outraged, get upset, perhaps react, perhaps overreact. So this takes place, and what is the response? It seems nothing. Now I have done this long enough for my hair to have gone grey, to have sat and listened to Americans propounding how India's freedom of speech and press is worse than Afghanistan, how freedom of religion in this country doesn't even exist. What is it? We are half a democracy. I've heard all of this. So what happens when a minority faith institution gets vandalized in the US? Think about it. So let me now put the same thought experiment and open this up. Praful Jog is joining us all the way from Botswana. Ashok Sajanhar, former ambassador, joining us on the broadcast. Surinder Singh Lali is with us to put this in perspective as well. Ambassador Sajanhar, if I can come to you now. Like I said, we know the motivation, we know the CV of the groups who are up to no good in the US, why they do it. They want to create a communal tension, they want to create an overreaction, they want to prove whatever points that they want to prove. But the premise from where I began is a just premise. Had this been a place of worship of any denomination, majority or minority, it would have incurred more than a mention than what we are seeing currently after this BAPS Mandir has been defaced, has been vandalized.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much, Rishabh. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you on your shows. You are absolutely right. I think this is stark hypocrisy, arrant hypocrisy that, is the freedom of press. And it's not only in the United States we see it. It is, you look at Canada, the manner in which, all sorts of threats that are given to the political leaders, to the High Commissioner, Indian High Commissioner there. And it's all, pardoned, it's all excused because it's freedom of press. And similarly, when your external affairs minister is in London and there are demonstrations and a person comes, he's able to go through the barricades, come dangerously close to him, tear the tricolor. It is, freedom of expression, freedom to protest and demonstrate. So it is hypocrisy. This is hypocrisy. And of course, it needs to be taken up very strongly, as the Indian government has done, and take it up with the government there, and insist that there has to be action, demonstrable action and demonstrable results. But if you permit, I would also like to say that one of the problems that we face in our own faith is that it's a very divided faith. It's the Hindus are not united. We really need to be united. You see, we might have our different sects. It's BAPS, Swaminarayan, Arya Samajis, etc., all of them. But I think when it comes to issues like this, all of them need to get together and rise up with one voice. We don't do that because we see that, there are these distinctions, there are in between them also, there are certain fissures, there are certain fractures, and so if something happens to one particular sect, the others will not come to its support or
but Ambassador Sajana, that's true of the Christian faith. They have been trying to resolve it since the Council of Nicaea. I mean, there are Orthodox Jews and otherwise. That there are more than enough sects, not just Shia and Sunni, Ahmadi and going on from there in the Muslim faith as well. The premise is very simple. This is a temple of worship of a minority denomination in the United States of America, which will tell you and me that we live in a country in which religious expression is stunted. What are they doing about it?
I'm not trying to absolve them. I'm not trying to sort of, give any excuse for them. But I'm also looking at, as far as, let's say, Islam is concerned, Christianity is concerned, Jews are concerned, there might be so many differences amongst them. But, when there is an attack on any particular sect, all of them will get together and all of them will protest against it, and all of them will be united in one voice. They will sort of, advance their own point of view. As far as we are concerned, there are very many divisions. As I said, I'm not trying to absolve them. It is the responsibility, any one of these sects, whether it is, the Swaminarayan BAPS temple, or it is, meaning even as far as Gurdwaras are concerned, they have also been vandalized in different parts of the world, and it's a minority that comes out in support. So I think this whole group, whole community needs to come together, needs to act united. You might have your own differences, but as it is said, there is a diversity, but underlying the diversity, there's the unity. And I think that unity needs to inform us, inform all our actions, and particularly when it is an attack on our peace, security, stability, then I think each and every one needs to come together and protest in a united voice, and I think that will have a greater
So there is a context
impact
to this. The context to this, ladies and gentlemen, is, believe it or not, there is yet another Khalistan referendum that is supposed to take place in Los Angeles. Sacramento is just down the road from Los Angeles. They're still at it. Now, the absurdity of this boggles my imagination. I'm sure it's reasonable for anybody if I put this supposition to them. Imagine if me sitting in faraway India decided that the Americans who actually fought a civil war between the North and the South, because there were people who were proponents of slavery, including the first US president who was a slave owner, and I start doing a referendum for the freedom of Texas in India. I put up hoardings celebrating the assassination of Lincoln. put up a nice placard, nice photo of John Wilkes Booth and make him our hero, or Lee Harvey Oswald. Imagine the absurdity of this. It would be just insane that this is taking place. This is the same absurdity with which we are viewing a referendum about a sovereign Indian territory taking place in Los Angeles. But nonetheless, there is a context. So let me get Ms. Lali into this conversation. Ms. Lali, it's obvious why this is happening. It's obvious why it's happening now. It should be more than obvious who are doing it. Now the question is, what is the energy in the American administration to understand the absurdity and do something about it?
Thank you, Mr. Gulati. And first, as a proud Indian Sikh, I condemn such despicable acts in the strongest of terms. And as you rightly said, the word referendum, I don't know which rock under these individuals are holding these referendums, because 87% of the Sikhs live in India. So I'm not too sure which Sikhism, which form, which sect of Sikhism they choose to represent. I mean, I personally feel these are pipsqueaks who don't even understand one part of Sikhism. But Mr. Gulati, as you rightly said, there is a lot more to what meets the eye. I mean, the West for the longest time has used these think tanks, the bogey of free speech, the financial institutions, their universities, US aid, their NGOs, the likes of George Soros, and I think now the tech czars would be next in creating narratives across the world so that they can divide countries, if not divide, put them in the back foot, create these dictators. I mean, so much so for American democracy, but believe me, for them, if you look at the history, they create dictators because then they probably find it more easier to deal with them in single window clearance. So how I see is that this is probably one of their ways to keep in check the growing India. But what makes me now, what I find even worth more laughing is how the entire West and the United States came down on us for dealing with Russia and buying gasoline worth, I think, $85 billion. And lo and behold, now Donald J. Trump goes back and shakes hands with the Russian president. So I find this all as a part of a larger narrative which they often try and create to keep the likes of India, especially India now, in check. Because how else would they control China in the Indo-Pacific if they don't want India on their side? And my last point is that the United States has been in the longest time in a habit of creating allies. And now that we don't wish to be their ally, and I don't think there are any more reasons to be allying, because I think the way America has been doing away with NATO and everything, I think there'll be more parties involved in this Cold War 2.0, which is coming up, and our importance is going to be more, especially in the Indo-Pacific, because now to each his own, and there'll be three different camps in the world: the United States, the China, Russia, and the Iran, and now the European Union, which is trying to raise 800 billion euros, because after the Second World War and after America got done away with the Bretton Woods institutions. So now I think the world is opening up, and we should just simply sit back and watch, because I see no reason why India...
So let me underline the point, because I don't understand. I've not understood it for a long period of time. I understand an American predisposition to say that if India is a rising power and aspires to be a great power, it must also then take upon its shoulders the responsibilities of a great power. Fair enough. Understood. But what benefit is it, even in the most realpolitik calculations, to be hosting people who vandalized places of worship of Hindus in America? To what strategic benefit is there? It makes no sense. Now, to the best of my knowledge, the US Vice President's wife is a Hindu. The head of the FBI, the head of the US Intelligence Services, Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel. What intent and purpose is it serving? That the people who are running intelligence, running the FBI, they have access to all of this. Now, their job is to serve Americans, not serve India. But I am assuming it's in the benefit of the United States of America and its leadership not to have these people roaming about. Let me get in a unique perspective. Praful Jog is joining us, and Praful Jog generally joins us on different occasions when we are celebrating good tidings. Unfortunately, Mr. Jog, I am bringing you in on an unhappy occurrence. So, I represent the same thought experiment to you, and I know it's a bit cliched, but it's straightforward. If this was a church or a mosque or a synagogue, all hell would be breaking loose in California right now.
Thank you so much to have me on your channel, and Ambassador Ashok ji has already touched on this. Basically, it's the lack of unity within the Hindu community. That is a major cause of concern worldwide. Now, this is the third incidence on the Swaminarayan temple, or a temple in the United States, the first one being in New York in September. Now, I have a very simple question. What is it that is being done by the establishments themselves to ensure that such occurrences do not take place repeatedly? Is there any security measures being put in place? Have the perpetrators of whatever has been done ever caught? Are there any CCTV cameras around the facilities? What measures have been put in to avoid such things? You see, I was reading a note by the United States BAPS official page on X, and it says, "Never let hate take root."
Yes.
And that peace and compassion shall prevail. Now, what it means is that, look, we have endured what we have done, but our position has been, or it will continue to be, that of peace, resilience, being compassion, and we have grown up with believing that non-violence is the way forward, and that is what our sons and sadhus continue to preach. When have you ever heard of a sadhu saying that, no, if you are attacked, attack? They'll still tell you to be compassionate, you see, be resilient. So are we not sending a wrong message to the community, to the Hindu community, that no matter what happens, don't be aggressive, practice peace?
No, but that of course is the right message. Nobody is suggesting that we should be raising a militia in Sacramento to defend temples. But at the same
Correct.
time, now, Mr. Jog, you of course watch news as it comes in, right? When the
Yes.
Indian High Commission itself can be assaulted, besieged, the tricolor can be ripped down, the security of our embassy staff, the security of our foreign minister can be easily compromised. Do you assume that these are happenstances, that they are happening beyond control, or do you sometimes suspect that these things are being allowed to deliberately happen?
Possibly, because there's this high level of security, and how does one break that security cordon? So there has to be something that is playing, allowing these guys, these rogue elements, to bypass security and go as close to the dignitaries as they could. The other day in England, in the embassy in London, they climbed the first floor. How does that happen? Because it's a heavily guarded facility.
No, it should
I
be.
mean, it has got barricades.
It should be.
Yes, it is.
I cannot conceive that the US embassy or the UK High Commission, somebody would easily jump over the wall. I cannot even fathom that if Marco Rubio was in India and somebody had breached his security so brazenly, who meant him harm. I cannot imagine what the diplomatic consequences would have been, let alone the sheer national embarrassment. But it seems that there is scarce any botheration, Mr. Jog.
What I think is, do we do more than just condemning the incident? All we do is, our leadership says we condemn, and then we are told to be cool and calm at all times, you see, not to aggravate the matter further. So, this is something that needs to be done at a very high level, at a very high political level. And the leadership is the one that needs to get involved, together with the local community, wherever these incidents takes place, to ensure that our facilities are protected, you see. And one more thing I would like to add is that, look, we need to have a temple in every town in the United States, every town in Europe, and wherever we can. Why not? Because we see a lot of other places of worship sprouting all over India. Why can we not have our temples outside India? so that we can teach the people what Hinduism all about.
So let me do the disaggregation here. Okay, the majority of the world's Hindus happen to live in India. This is where this belief system originated, right?
Correct.
But government of India is not a spokesperson for Hindus. Hindus in different parts of the world can speak for themselves, and many of them are. Obviously, the recommendation cannot be that you are on your own, defend yourselves to the best that you can and raise militias, but the frustration can easily be understood. Let me get Ambassador Sajjanar back in. Ambassador Sajjanar, as a country, we can only point out that ensuring safety of all denominations and their places of worship should be a protocol that we all agree on. Beyond that, what can we do?
I think we'll really have to sort of, impose certain costs on the host governments. For instance, now as far as the United States is concerned, you said very correctly, Rishabh, that you have people who understand Hinduism, Sanatan and the values, and so they know that this is a faith, the belief that needs to be protected. And so if there are people like this, whether it is, and they are in very important positions, Tulsi Gabbard is there, and they are in influential positions where it matters, because earlier also we had people in senior positions in the White House, but they were not dealing with all these issues. They were dealing with desk jobs. Now these are people who are in the field, so to say, and who have the capacity and the authority to impose certain restrictions. So Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard and all the others, and even people like Mike Waltz, who is National Security Advisor, he knows India well. He was the co-chair of the India Caucus, etc. So these are people who know, who understand. So we would expect something more from them, something better from them, as compared to what the earlier dispensation was. I have nothing against Mr. Biden, etc. I think our relations, bilateral relations, Quad, Indo-Pacific, technology transfer, they improved, they did extremely well. But as far as this aspect was concerned, there were the extreme leftists, the woke elements, the so-called progressives and all, who were bent on ensuring that this aspect of India, there is something to name and shame as far as India is concerned. When our Prime Minister was visiting in 2023, June 23, just a week before that, the White House, the National Security Council, was receiving a delegation of Khalistani sympathizers and extremists, and telling them that their security, safety, etc. would be well protected and so on.
No, I can take it a step further. I can take it a step further.
Yes,
I'm Punjabi.
yes.
Okay, I can take it a step further. If you are happen to be from Punjab, and you want to become a migrant to North America, you will be advised by the agents that claim you are a persecuted Sikh, and your visa will get prosecuted, you will get residency very fast. If you try to be an economic migrant, then you will be in, it's a 10-year long haul. But just claim that you are facing persecution, and you'll get your residency. This is advisory which is being given, which shows you the belief of the administration on the other side on how they're assessing people who actually want to come and work and contribute versus people who want to, create Khalistan in Brampton and Surrey. But let's address that. Let me get Mr. Lali back in. Mr. Lali, so then what should we do other than, pound our chests in important frustration? Should we then start, should I become a campaigner for the Lone Star State, and should I put a hoarding in front of my house celebrating the assassination of Lincoln? What do I do, sir?
Reciprocity behavior. Mr. Gulati, if you look at the history, I think we the Hindus have been, I don't know, lack of a better expression, punished for our subservience and tolerance. I mean, had not that been the case, we wouldn't have had 800 years Mughal ruling us, and then, and then the British Raj for 200 years. So I think I fully agree with the larger sentiment that we have been a divided lot, and we need to get our act together. Otherwise, as a divided house, they will. I mean, I remember I met the British Premier Ujjwal Dosanjh once about 6 years ago, and this is a one-on-one conversation in which he said that When Pierre Trudeau was told that there are two individuals, Mr. Parmar, who are trying to, check bombs. They've been making bombs and they've been going into the woods, trying to check them out. And these ivory towers that the white individuals have lived in. He said, it's okay, it's none of our business. Is the blue turban fighting the green turban? In any case, we have them for menial jobs in our country. What do we care? As long as they do these jobs, and lo and behold, what happened? I mean, we lost a air Kanishk bomber and 329 innocent lives. So I think, yes, there has to be a larger change of attitude. And unless and until we don't stand up and give it back to them in the language in which they best understand, and we gave them one such trailer when Devyani Khobragade happened. So I think they will have to they'll take cognizance of it when it starts to bite their foot. This is what I feel. Although
so
I'm not a qualified diplomat, but
look, unhappy things happen in many places in the world. We all want good things in our times, but we have to be real enough to assume that unhappy things. It's how you react and respond by which I judge you. So I'm used to the Americans saying, "Oh, this is a true story," and I end on this note. South Asia bureau chief from New York Times, I met him for dinner and I asked him this question: that when a terrorist attack takes place in India, you call it militancy, militant. Why do you say that? And he started to explain to me, when a military installation is attacked, it's militancy, but if civilians are attacked, it's terrorism. By the definition, this means that on 9/11, the attacks in New York on the World Trade Towers was terrorism, but the attack on the Pentagon, which is a military installation, was militancy. It's hypocritical to the extreme. But of course, that means that we are free in our free part of the world to also support the freedom of Quebec, to the cessation of Texas from the United States, the revival of the civil wars. I mean, I think there should be a referendum on whether the colonies of America should stay together or even Alaska should stay there. I think all these referendums should start happening in Kanpur, in Lucknow. We should start doing these referendums. We have no locus standi, but apparently that makes no difference if you live in America or live in UK or in Brampton or in Surrey in Canada. It's very bizarre. I thank my guests, and it's just that hypocrisy which we wanted to highlight through the course of this conversation. I hope we have. See you in a minute.